right. It's great to be here today. Room full of educators. Educators are some of my favorite people in the world, and I kind of have to say that because 4 of my siblings are educators and my mum would kill me if I didn't say that. So I'm in good company here, and I love the topic and I love the gathering, innovation in public education. Actually, my journey at Mathspace started with innovation in public education. I had a very innovative maths teacher at Sefton High School, a partially selective school, and we had a really great cohort of students when I came in Year 7. And this innovative teacher said, her name was Mrs. Barbara Dyke, and she said, let's experiment with getting this really great cohort of students and have one class do Year 8 and Year 9 condensed into 1 year and have an accelerated class. I happened to be one of those lucky students that was part of that class that benefited from that innovation. I went on to do Extension 2 mathematics when I was in grade 11, and it just instilled in me, and I had the same teacher the whole way through, and it really instilled in me this passion and love for mathematics. And how that shaped Mathspace, well, going into university, I did actuarial studies, which is about the massiest thing you could do. And then it came time to get a job, and I saw a job ad that said, you've got to pass an 80-question maths test inside 8 minutes as a kind of step 1. Now, I didn't know what the job was, but that sounded like my kind of work, right? So I ended up getting this job as a derivative trader, trading options on the stock market. I did that for 4 years. I absolutely loved it. It's just exercised the mathematical brain. But there came a point where I felt a little bit empty, and it was global financial crisis. Global financial crisis was a derivative trader's dream. As normally we just understand pricing better because of our mathematical models, etc. And we're buying and selling in this kind of narrow range. And then suddenly, volatility, we're buying and selling in this range, and we're really good at like buying there, selling there, thousands and thousands of times a day until we make these kind of record profits, and we're high-fiving each other. Every second day is like a record profit. Hey, and you go home, and the world's falling apart, and friends are losing their jobs, and you're kind of wondering, hey, do I want to spend the rest of my life just being the better player in a zero-sum game? And that's how I saw it. So I decided to call it quits. I had just been named partner. I was leading the robot trader project there, which is looking at automating trading. And everyone was surprised. And Chris, who's in the room today, said, what are you going to do next? You're leaving your hotshot job. And I said, no, I'm going to take a year off and be a maths teacher. And he said, really? You have to do all this? And he pitched the idea to me of what became Mathspace. And basically, it was a chance for me to exercise my passion for software development, for working with software developers, for automating, for data, with my passion for maths education. And we basically started Mathspace with this belief that every student can excel at maths with the right help at the right time. Can we provide the right help at the right time for every student? How do we go about doing that? And so that's the beginning. And so we kind of put together a small team, and for 2 years in this R&D phase, and we built a product. We did this innovation where you can do your working out step by step as you're working through digitally. So for anyone who's aware of Mathspace, for all the non-maths teachers in the room, you have to put up with me, that's my specialty. So we built this product, and over time it's kind of really struck a chord with students and teachers, and we were making an impact. And it was fantastic. That step-by-step support as students were working through grade level content was great. That's exactly how we went through school, and it was really supportive and all of that. But it wasn't every student. And this was a real kind of learning for us, and really what I want to talk about today. What we found is that particular approach that we took, we brought in all our own biases when we came to building this product. And we were all math nerds, math lovers, always did well at school. All we needed was like a little bit of a hint in the right direction, and we could solve that problem and move on and do things on our own and all of that. That's not where most kids are at. Most kids are in the back of the classroom trying to hide because they've got gaps in their learning. They're not ready to engage with grade level content. And this was kind of new to us. And the big lesson there was we needed to change our approach, and we needed to co-design solutions with educators. It's not enough to build innovative technology. And I'm sure this is a theme that you're hearing a lot today. It's all about having that innovation in place with the educators and the practitioners who are in the classroom who can make things happen. And so we started to design solutions with them. Okay, how do we go about this? How do we even deal with this problem of you have some students who have gaps in, they're a grade 7 student, but some of them have gaps in fractions, some of them have gaps in geometry, some of the gaps in probability. How do I actually deal with this whole problem? Do I stop the class and just say, okay, we're going to work on year 4 content until we fill in all our gaps? Doesn't sound like the best solution. How can we set up our classroom practices to take actually advantage of this? And through that, we started to integrate AI. We're like, oh, there's some innovative technology that's going to make this easier. But it was the real thing that changed. It wasn't the technology that was leading the innovation. It was the educators and the problem that was leading, like, what are the technological solutions that we can do to this? And so what you see here is what we call it's our AI continuous assessment engine. And what we can do here is we can say, okay, well, we can diagnose students really efficiently. If a student got a question wrong on 1-step equations, then they most certainly don't know how to do 2-step equations and 3-step equations because it's harder content. It's built exactly or directly on top of those prerequisites. And vice versa. If they can do 2-step equations, then they certainly can do 1-step equations. If they can do equations involving fractions, then they can certainly do fractions. So we're able to infer and hone in on a student's knowledge state really quickly using the power of AI. And what you see here is the curriculum outcomes from grade 3 up to grade 12, up to grade 10 over here. And what the more green it is, the more confident we are that a student knows that particular concept. And the more red it is, the more confident we are a student doesn't know that concept. And because we worked with educators, we didn't show students this. We showed students this, a gamified version of this where they go through and it becomes really easy. Here's your recommended practice. That recommended practice is based on what you're doing in class, but honing in on the specific gaps that you have in prior grade levels. So you can see in prior grade levels here, we have some gaps that are in there in their prior grade levels, and as you can see there, and then they're working towards their current grade level. So the best way to work towards current grade level is to kind of fill in those gaps in your prior grade levels. By working with teachers to do this, it was a complete game changer when we released this in the classroom. So really the theme of today is that technological innovation on its own is really fine, but meh. But educator innovation combined, and particularly if you can have these tight feedback loops as you're going through this, that's what leads to transformative educational practices in the classroom. Okay, so we fast forward to 2023. And 2023, we're going to be talking about this in the future in 10 years from now and 20 years from now, saying this was the year where AI changed everything. I think it's hard to see it when you're in there. I'm a technologist, so I'm kind of like looking at this every day, and I'll share a little bit of like what I'm seeing in the market here, what I'm seeing in terms of technology. These large language models that we're seeing now, and as is ChatGPT is kind of the most obvious one that we've all experienced, it really does change everything. And we had a big aha moment. This graphic probably was the point where I had the aha moment personally and said, this is kind of it's really going to affect it, and we can't just pretend that it's not there. Something fundamental is shifting here. Those blue lines there is ChatGPT 3.5. That's the one that you jump online and use for free. The green one is GPT-4, okay? So ChatGPT 3.5 was released November 2022. 3 months later, February, it's like, oh, we've got this new one, ChatGPT-4. And this one's a plus, and it's behind a subscription, and you've got to pay $20 a month to access it. Have a look at some of these. The one with the biggest thing, if you can't see it there, that's the universal bar exam. That's the legal exam in the US. And it was like 10% was what ChatGPT 3.5 can get. Give it the questions, what does it get? It gets 10%. ChatGPT 4, that went up to 90%, right? In 3 months, the increase in that ability. And so when looking at ChatGPT, when we're looking at AI, and it's hard to understate just how fast these models will improve. And when it comes to math, for example, that very first bar, that's AP Calculus, okay? That's Advanced Placement Calculus. It's a grade 12 course in the US. ChatGPT 3.5, terrible. If everyone's tried ChatGPT on maths, it's not very good. ChatGPT 4, a lot better. Right? So it's got up to 40%. So what happens as we keep, and nothing major has changed here in terms of the technology. This is something to understand, except more data, better transformers, more fine-tuning. It's not a massive technological breakthrough now. Like, we know the pathway to do this. And what it does is, what we saw is there's these what they call emergent properties. Things that we just did not think would happen. People who have been in the AI industry for 20 years did not expect this to happen, where some kind of semblance of intelligence started to come out of these things just by throwing more data and more compute. So suddenly it could reason, because large language models are really just a autocomplete on the next word, but it can reason as it goes through just for doing this. So something I want to kind of put out there, educators, and why I'm sharing this, because I'm in this space all the time, I'm a technologist, I can't understate just how much of an impact this will have in 2 years from now, in 3 years from now. We have to get our hands dirty now and shape the experiences that our students have with this. It's not enough to say, oh, we'll wait till it gets better, or if we don't shape what it does, then we're going to kind of miss the boat. So I'll share a bit about what we did at Mathspace, and maybe for some school leaders in the room, you can kind of either be inspired or not from the approach that I took leading a team of 70 staff at Mathspace. So we saw this release in that date, February 10, 2023, ChatGPT Plus. Obviously, we started playing with it and going like, hey, this is a huge improvement, particularly at maths. And so I sent a message out to the team a month later. You can see the date there, March 22nd. And I basically said, hey, we got to start using this. I don't care what you're doing at Mathspace. We're buying you ChatGPT Plus today. I don't care if you work at Mathspace 1 day a week, 2 hours a week, doesn't matter. Everyone's going to have access to it. That's important because if you only get some people have access to it, you don't get the sharing. Everyone's getting access to it. We're all, and I will encourage every single one of us to just start experimenting. I don't know how we're going to use it, but I know we should start using it today. I know we should start experimenting it in our own workflows and understand how it makes things better. And that's the kind of message that I want. I don't know what the best use cases are for teachers, but you won't find out unless you get in there and start experimenting. And this is a huge shift in the market where you should be doing this. So it was interesting watching the reaction from schools. The very first reaction is like, oh, let's try and keep this on the down low because cheating. But over time, and schools are big beasts and they're hard to move and it's kind of not as quick as just saying, hey, let's just do this. We're seeing a lot of educators start to use this, and I would encourage more and more to just get in there and experiment and see and be highly visible about what it is that you're trying to do there. Because if you're not using it, one thing is absolutely clear, all your students are using it. 70% of 14 to 17-year-old Australians have used ChatGPT. So to pretend that like, oh, it's not there, that's not an answer. That's not an answer at all. And when I look at this statistic, I'm not saying, oh my God, 70% of 14 to 17-year-old students have used ChatGPT. I look at this and say, why are the 30% not using ChatGPT? What's going on there? There's this amazing tool. It's going to help you in so many ways. Why aren't you not using it? And that's a really an important part, and I'll talk about is equity. How do we go about an equitable distribution that everybody has access to this? So I set myself the target of talking to a school a day in term 3 about AI. And so I actually blew through that. So many people want to talk about AI. I think I'm nearing the century. And I wanted to talk and listen and share what we're doing and listen from schools about what they're doing. And I looked at the top 5 concerns that are coming out of adopting AI in education. What's stopping people? And the number one thing is cheating. Right? We're actually really worried about making that obvious that you can cheat now. Let's keep it on the down low. Let's kind of pretend that nobody knows. Doesn't work. Hallucinations, like, oh, it's actually not that accurate, especially when I talk to a lot of math teachers. It's like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to use it, it's not that accurate. So that's definitely a problem. Teacher visibility and control, it's a big one. It's like, I don't know if students are using it or not, and there's actually no way of finding out. That's a problem in itself. Safety is definitely one with anything online, privacy, data security, etc. And then equitable access. Like, if we're going to use it, we kind of want to use it with everybody. Equity is important to all educators. So I'll touch on each of these and then talk about how we can address them and how we've looked at some of them at Mathspace. So cheating, as I mentioned, really when we look at cheating, maths teachers find this interesting. Maths teachers say, kids have been able to cheat in maths for a long time. But like humanities, now you've got to deal with the same thing we've been dealing with for years. They could always use their calculator and work out their fractions. We just have to adopt our assessment. A lot of our maths assessment is done in school. A lot of our homework is lower stakes. And so that's something that I think schools will just have to adopt to. But really, I think the key is addressing the underlying cause of cheating. Students don't come to school going like, how am I going to cheat today? Students come to school wanting to learn. They cheat because they run out of time to do an assignment. It's overwhelming, they don't know what to do next, right? It's those things, and those things remain. Let's address the root cause behind the cheating, right? Like, you gave them 2 weeks to do an assignment, let them have ChatGPT, here's an idea, and say, I want to see your, let's say you gave them 4 weeks to write a history essay. After every week, I want to see where you get up to. And so I'm going to kind of have these kind of check-in points as you go. And I'm going to see that improvement as you go through. So you can't use ChatGPT, or if you are using ChatGPT, go ahead and use it, but I want to see how you've improved on that answer that ChatGPT gave you. This is an example of something. Hallucinations, I mean, you've all seen the hallucinations. This is a particularly funny one where 2 + 5 = 7, but hey, if your wife says it's right, it's 8, and she's always right, then sure, it's 8. So you've seen these kinds of examples. These are something that ChatGPT Plus is so much better at. But also it's just the nature of LLMs, and I think this is a big learning opportunity. Large language models are going to be around. They're going to have these errors in what they spit out. This is just a learning opportunity to say, okay, there's a tool, it spits out some great information, it also spits out some errors, how are you going to deal with that? Teacher visibility is always a tricky one, but the same thing of the best way to approach this is to actually teach students in class how to prompt. Tell them how to use ChatGPT. When they see, and you have modeled, that you have advanced techniques for prompting ChatGPT, suddenly they're like, oh yeah, my teacher knows about this. I better be careful when I'm using ChatGPT. Don't hide from it. Go in there, and that's the best way, and establish that trust with students. Like, there's going to be some task where I let you use ChatGPT, and there's going to be some task where I don't. And in your final assessment, it's going to be done in class because we don't have ChatGPT, so you're kind of cheating yourself if you do that all the time. Those kinds of conversations are very important. Bring them to the forefront early. Safety is one that's always an issue. Just a golden rule here is when you're talking to ChatGPT or other large language models, assume that it's a human on the other side. Be careful what you share. Same kind of privacy that you might have if you're talking to a human on the other side, afford that same thing. Especially important if AIs ever take over and we're not nice to them, they might push back. So be nice to the AI. And then equity. This one's always a tricky one. Professor Leslie Lobel, former Deputy Secretary of the New South Wales Department of Education. It was an article just last week. And she brought up a point of like, okay, if we care about equity and we talk about $20 per student, let's give students access to GPT Plus because some have it and some don't. And it's $20 a month and you've got a school of 1,000 kids. Hey, you're looking at $250,000 to give everyone access. So that's a problem. So how do we go about it at Mathspace? What happened of our innovation at Mathspace? Well, we looked at Mathspace and we combined it with ChatGPT to see, okay, this innovative mindset kind of led us to really pretty quickly release Milo, our new AI chatbot in Mathspace. And Milo is a way for students to ask questions of the large language model as they go through and get instant help on their questions. Okay? Mathspace has always been a kind of one-way chat. You can ask for a hint, you can watch a video, etc., but you've never been able to kind of engage in a two-way conversation. So Milo's injecting large language models, ChatGPT Plus in the background, ChatGPT 4, to get this happening. And so how do we address all our concerns? Cheating? What's the answer? We won't give it away. Let's work on it together. I know it's tough, but let's break it down. That's the kind of approach that we have. Carefully prompting to not give away the answer, so making it easier to learn than to cheat. That's the big goal that we have and the principle that we have. On hallucinations, because we have all these questions with step-by-step solutions and hints as we go, we've trained it on every single question as it goes through, and we only release it when we're confident it doesn't hallucinate. So we have that kind of credibility that's built in. On teacher visibility, teacher can see every single student conversation they have. We encourage them to cheat with Milo, and we can see how much they're using it. And that's the kind of mindset we want to have. On safety, if a student does have a dangerous conversation like that, which we don't get much of, then it's flagged. And the great thing about large language models and AI is we have a second AI monitoring the conversations that are going on and classifying, hey, this looks dangerous, and we can flag that. The possibilities are just endless with the kinds of things that we can do. And then finally, our commitment to equity. So we've made this free while in beta for terms 3 and 4, and we've actively sought out diverse teachers for beta testing. This is something that is really important to us to make sure that we're co-designing this with our students from diverse backgrounds, public schools, private schools. The results so far, student engagement increased by 30%. Accuracy after chatting with Milo has increased by 20%, really positive. And probably most positive for us is this is like a record for any feature we've released. 68% of students would be disappointed if we were to take Milo away. That's blown away anything else we've ever released in Mathspace. So I'll just finalize with everyone needs a seat at this table. And so going forward, obviously we can't make it free forever, but for next year, we're committing to making it at cost for 2024. And we've done the calculations and it roughly costs $10 per student to have access to Milo for the entire year, right? Rather than $20 per month for ChatGPT, $10 for the entire year to get access to this chat tutor as you go through. And we also made a commitment to share that cost 50-50 with any low ICSIA schools who might not be able to afford that, because even at $10 per year, we know that government schools often can't afford that, and we don't want this to be something that we end up developing for only those schools with the privilege. So why should educators lead the charge for AI adoption in the classroom? Because it is that intersection of technological advancement and educator innovation that transforms education. Thank you.